Good afternoon, and welcome to the Life and Spirit podcast. And this is episode 13, and today we're going to be talking about. This is episode 13. We're going to be focused on chapter 8 of the book of Matthew, and the specific verses that we're going to be focused on are 1 through 17, and they're verses that. Where Jesus is performing healing. And what's so interesting about it is you go from chapter 7 to chapter 8, the very last verse of chapter 7, which I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to read, and I think maybe you'll see where I'm going with this. It is verse 28, the authority of Jesus. And it says, "And when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one who had authority and not as their scribes." And so that's how chapter 7 ends. And of course, the Sermon on the Mount, he was certainly showing his authority in the way that he conducted his teaching. And now the large crowds are still with him, and they're gathered, but now he transitions from showing his authority through his teaching to showing his authority through his healing. And I'm going to start here with verse 1 through, I believe it's verse 1 through 4 in chapter 8. And I think that I'll let the verses, we'll take it from there. But it is the heading of chapter 8, verse 1. There's a heading over the Bible, in my ESV Bible. It's Jesus cleanses a leper. And the verses go, "When he came down from the mountain, great crowds followed him. And behold, a leper came to him and knelt before him, saying, 'Lord, if you will, you can make me clean.' And Jesus stretched out his hand and he touched him, saying, 'I will, be clean.' And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said to him, 'See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a proof to them.'" And so as we go through these verses, the first thing you notice is that the leopard came forward to Jesus and knelt beside him. And that is from that society, certainly the ancient Jewish society of that day. That would be a very unusual thing to do, because lepers were isolated from the rest of the population. They were outside of the community, and they were actually people that were unclean, from the perspective of the Jewish faith, and so that you would certainly wouldn't see under normal circumstances a leper take the step of actually moving forward or coming forward to Jesus, but this leper did. And this leper also showed that he had great faith. He referred to him as Lord, and so very respectfully, and I think that also showed that he believed his divinity by calling him Lord. He was quite humble, and he also, kind of the way he set it up, he said, "Lord, if you're willing," and so it kind of shows that he kind of gave the Lord the option of whether or not he was going to actually perform that healing, and so he wasn't demanding it. He was very humble, and he said, "If you're willing," and so that is certainly something to make note of, and that he also showed that he had faith. That he, as the verse indicated, you can make me clean. He knew that Jesus had authority to make him clean, but he didn't know if he'd be willing to do that. He took the bold step of coming forward and kneeling beside him. And so what happens next is, I can only imagine, out of the large crowd, there must have been a real murmur, because Jesus actually touched him. And he basically... it says, and Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I will, be clean. And so he showed that he was willing to touch him, and the Jesus' healing power came out of him. Jesus had authority over that illness of leprosy. And so Jesus, who is clean and holy, actually what came out of him was his healing, and he made this man who was unclean with leprosy clean, free of leprosy, and so he really turned it around. Instead of being unclean by touching the leper, he made the leper clean by that healing power coming out of him. And so that is certainly something to make note of. And then he gave the leper the command of, and I want to make sure I get this right. He said, see that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a proof to them. And so Jesus actually gave the leper instructions of what to do after being cleansed and being cured of his leprosy, which is a real miracle. And I was curious myself as I was preparing for this podcast. I wanted to know for certain, or if it was possible to know for certain, I wanted to find out if the leper actually obeyed the words of Jesus and actually told no one and went directly to the priest and offered the sacrifices per the law. And in the book of Matthew, you could read the book of Matthew, and you're not going to know whether this leper had actually obeyed the words of Jesus or not. It's certainly not known by reading the account in the book of Matthew. However, if you read the book of Mark, there is an account of this leper. And again, I'm paraphrasing at this point, but basically the account of this leper is that he left Jesus, cured of his leprosy, and perhaps on his way to meet with the priest, he told everyone. And so he basically told everybody that he was cured of his leprosy. He must have been excited, but he was also disobedient to what Jesus instructed him to do. And I thought that was very noteworthy. And so, of course, the word would have gotten around that Jesus touched him, made him clean, and that this man who had leprosy was now well, and so and made clean. And so certainly it would have grown the excitement that there already was over Jesus' ministry, but at the same time it was the exact opposite of what Jesus told him to do. I think Jesus really, again, he wasn't looking for fame and fortune by any means, and he wasn't looking to get famous in that sense and to get credit for this healing. What he was really looking for was he had such compassion that he healed the man and touched him and healed him. And he had a lot to do. He was certainly on this earth for a reason. He knew that eventually he was going to be entering Jerusalem, and he would be that he would actually be crucified and killed, and then of course his resurrection. But he knew the fate that waited him. He had a lot of work to do. And so the man was kind of working against him by telling everybody that Jesus did that. So he did the opposite of what Jesus told him to do. The next account of Jesus healing is really interesting. And the heading is the faith of a centurion. And so that's the heading of this particular portion of Scripture. And it is about Jesus healing the servant of that centurion, that Roman centurion. And so that is very interesting. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read this account and then, of course, discuss it in some detail. And so it's starting out with verse 5. When he had entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward to him, appealing to him, "Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly." And he said to him, "I will come and heal him." But the centurion replied, "Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to one, 'Go,' and he goes, and I say to another, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my servant, 'Do this,' and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who followed him, "Truly I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at table with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And to the centurion Jesus said, "Go, let it be done for you as you have believed." And the servant was healed at that very moment. And wow, there is a lot to cover in this story. First of all, they entered Capernaum, which was a village, and the centurion. Well, a centurion is a man. He was a man with a good deal of authority. He actually had authority, direct authority over 100 Roman soldiers. So in Roman society, a centurion would have certainly been considered somebody that was a man with a good deal of authority. From a society standpoint or culture standpoint, that it would be very unusual for a centurion. The Romans really didn't, certainly didn't seem to have the respect for the structure of authority of the Jewish people. And so for him to show such humility and like the leper to refer to Jesus as Lord, that is the first thing of note. And so he showed that he was under Jesus' authority, and he referred to him as Lord. So he recognized Jesus' authority. I would say that he recognized his divinity. He was somebody that had strong faith. And then it's really noteworthy that that it would be really a no-no for a Jewish spiritual leader to go into a Gentile's home. That would just be something that a Jewish spiritual leader just would not do. And yet, this centurion who approached Jesus and told him about his servant who was paralyzed at home and was suffering terribly, was obviously showing that he really loved his servant. He certainly had a lot of compassion for his servant. And Jesus responded right away by saying that he will go to his home and he was going to heal him. And so Jesus didn't hesitate to do something that really would have been, something that, much like touching the leper in the previous healing, Jesus was willing to move by compassion and willing to go to his home to heal his servant, and didn't hesitate to say that he would do that. And then the servant, or the centurion, his response is worth bringing up again, and that is that he said that he was not worthy to have Jesus come into his home. By saying that, he probably showed that he had some sensitivity to the religious sensitivities that Jewish people had toward Gentiles at that time, and so perhaps there may have been that sensitivity. It also showed a great deal of humility, but I also think that it showed a tremendous amount of faith. And then, of course, he communicated it so well by referring to the fact that he was a centurion, and that he had authority, and that his authority, that he could give orders to those people under his authority. Certainly, a centurion is over 100 Roman soldiers, for instance. He could actually give orders to any of his soldiers, and they would obey his orders without hesitation. And he also referred to he would be able to give his servant orders, and his servant would actually obey those orders without hesitation. And so he communicated it in such a way, I think, that was so clear and concise, and it really showed that he understood authority. He understood his own authority. He showed humility by willingly being under the authority of Jesus. And then he showed such faith by saying that you are a man of authority, and that you have authority over my servant's illness. You don't have to go to my home. That all you'd have to do is to tell that illness to be gone. And of course, I'm paraphrasing here, but to tell that illness to be gone, and it would leave my servant, and he would be well. He truly believed it. He truly had faith that was the case. And the scripture says that Jesus was amazed at his faith. And Jesus by now had had a lot of experiences, but it's so interesting that where he was amazed was by this centurion's faith, and how he communicated that faith, and how he demonstrated that faith. And Jesus, really paid him a tremendous compliment. I mean, it was certainly what an amazing compliment to say that he had, that no one in all of Israel had shown better faith or more faith than this man, that he was, he had won the gold medal for faith. I mean, Jesus was that amazed by his faith. And then he actually also used it as a teaching moment, and said that in the heavenly realm that there will be people from the east and people from the west, and they are going to be dining with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that those people are going to be living in eternity in heaven, and dining with certainly Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac and Jacob. And so he was basically saying that my ministry, or he was referring to the fact that it was not going to just be the chosen people or the Jewish people, but Gentiles too were going to be, and other people were going to be, other people that were non-Jewish would be making it to heaven, dining with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that there will be those that will be people that are going to not make it to heaven, and where they're going to be going, there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And so basically the pass, or the key to make it into heaven, it's not just a religious thing or an ethnic thing, that it is something that people are going to make it to heaven because of their certainly because of their faith. And so he had used this particular example as a teaching moment to just say that people outside the Jewish faith are going to make it to heaven, that there'll be people in the Jewish faith that do not make it, and it's the measuring stick, or the reason for people making it is going to be their faith, and the reason that people don't make it is because of their lack of faith. And so I certainly wanted to remember to mention that he used that as a teaching moment. What a huge compliment he paid to this Roman centurion, and of course the Roman centurion really truly warranted that kind of compliment, and was a man of humility, a man of great faith and trust in certainly the authority that Jesus had, and Jesus rewarded that faith with that compliment. But then, even more importantly, especially if you were that servant, he was made well at that very moment. And so Jesus' authority, not only did this was a healing of, I'm not sure what that illness was, a very serious illness that Jesus had authority over, but that his authority actually was not limited by distance, and he was able to make him well, despite the fact that he may have he wasn't in proximity to where Jesus was. He may have been miles away, and so that is certainly something worth noting. Also worth noting, because Jesus is the Son of God, is the fact that Jesus actually, his spoken word was enough to heal the centurion's servant, and so that kind of goes back to what we were talking about, even with creation, as far as he was that he and Father God and the Spirit, they spoke creation into existence. And so very powerful teaching here in regard to the healing that involved that Roman centurion. And then the last part that we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about the Jesus heals many. And so I'm going to start with verse 14. And when Jesus entered Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law lying sick with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she rose and began to serve him. That evening they brought to him many who were oppressed by demons, and he cast out the spirits with a word, and healed all who were sick. This was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet Isaiah 700 plus years earlier. He took our illnesses and bore our diseases. And so there's a lot to unpack here. He entered Peter's house. This is the first time that his ministry was inside a house, so worth noting. And it was Peter's house, his disciple, and it was Peter's mother-in-law who was very sick. And it simply says that, it says that she was sick and that she was bedridden with fever. And so if you were to go back in time to that particular time in history, any kind of an illness that involved a high fever could certainly be life-threatening. It could be very serious because the fever could get out of control, and it could actually be deadly. And so that's worth noting. And so it was a serious illness, and yet Jesus was able to heal her immediately. And in fact, it said that he touched her hand. So once again, like with the leper, his touch was certainly part of the healing. And he touched her hand, and she was well. And then I think it also is really worth talking about the fact that she was so grateful, as you would be if you were lying in bed with a high fever, perhaps hoping that maybe hoping you'll get well, not sure if you're going to get well, not sure if that illness is going to be the death of you, and suddenly just by his gentle touch you're made well. You were going to be very grateful. Certainly you're going to be feeling a lot of love toward the Lord. And I think it's perfectly appropriate that somebody that has been, whose life may have been saved by Jesus, would actually want to certainly just jump up and begin serving as she did. And her house guests were probably not the easiest house guests to have over. And it was a good thing she was well, because she had people that had demonic possession that were later, brought to Jesus. And Jesus actually, who has authority, of course, over demonic spirits, was able to release them of the grip from those demonic spirits, was able to remove those demonic spirits from those people. I imagine they too were very, very grateful for, 1 minute you're under the control of a demonic spirit, and the next minute you're back to your old self, feeling better than you've ever felt. You're going to be very thankful to Jesus for freeing you from that demonic spirit. That's going to be something you'll be very grateful for. And he did that. He also, it doesn't actually say what those illnesses are, but he cured many illnesses, and so probably it runs the gamut from A to Z. There were just, with those large crowds, people just brought all those sick people to Jesus, and he healed them. And he cured them of his illness. He has authority, of course, over illness, and he has compassion, and he made them well. And so, what an exciting part of the book of Matthew to go from, certainly the teaching of Jesus was very exciting, and the Sermon of the Mount, as I had said in a previous podcast, was a great teaching in that it was a teaching that was his way of introducing his ministry to these huge crowds that came to hear him, and then to transition from the teaching with authority to healing with authority. And what did he heal? He healed leprosy. He healed some illness that the servant had that caused paralysis and made him bedridden. He healed that high fever that Peter's mother-in-law was suffering with, and then all those illnesses that were brought to him, and he made them all well. And so what an exciting 17 verses to be able to talk about with you today. And speaking of which, I just cannot thank you enough for tuning in to the Life in Spirit podcast, for you being part of the Life in Spirit podcast community. We covered verses 1 through 17 of the book, chapter 8 of the book of Matthew today. We'll cover the rest of the chapter in the next podcast, and I think you'll see that it really made good sense to split them up, because it certainly goes from healing to something quite different, which of course is the cost of following Jesus. And so we'll be talking about, I don't want to steal my own thunder, but we'll be talking about that in a few days. But this was just fun, exciting to talk about the healings of Jesus, the faith of the centurion and the leper, and how his touch was part of the healing that he did with love and compassion, and how even though so many were brought to him, I have confidence that he made them all well. And so he rolled up his sleeves, and I'm sure that it was a lot of work, but the end result was that people were made well from all those variety of different illnesses that he has, of course, authority over. And so thank you again for tuning in to the Life and Spirit podcast. We'll see you in a couple of days with the next episode of the Life and Spirit podcast, episode number 14. And so in the meantime, God bless you. God bless your families. I wish you nothing but the absolute best. And thank you again for tuning in to the Life and Spirit podcast.